Hello, my name is Meredith Cole, and for most of my life I wore the uniform of a United States Major General with pride. But at a family gathering, my own father cut me down in front of everyone, mocking me, as if my service meant nothing. What hurt most wasn't the insult, but the silence that followed. That moment changed everything until the truth could no longer be hidden. They call it a scholarship gala, but for me it became a courtroom, where my father sentenced me to shame. The hall smelled of sweet smoke and vinegar sauce, a haze from tin trays of barbecue that drifted past the plastic bunting and sagging banner. Conway Twitty hummed from a cheap speaker, the sound cracked at the high notes, and folding chairs squealed against linoleum as neighbors shifted for a better look at the buffet. I stepped inside in a navy dress, hair pinned back, shoes soft. My rank stayed at home, zipped away in a garment bag. Tonight, I wanted no medals, no ribbons, just a chance to pass unnoticed. It was the same posture I had learned as a child: shrink into corners, study the room, brace for a remark that would fall like a gavel. My mother's voice still lingered across the years, telling me not every battle needed fighting, but the ones I chose had to be fought clean. I carried that sentence like a compass, though here in Fredericksburg's overheated community hall, I wondered if silence counted as clean or cowardly. Aunt Ellie caught my eye near the coffee urn. She had chosen her Sunday best pearls, dulled by age but worn proudly. She reached for my hand and gave it a soft squeeze, her palm cool and dry. "Glad you came," she murmured, as if she sensed the tremor in me. The warmth of her fingers steadied my pulse. I managed a faint smile before she released me, her eyes drifting toward the stage where my father was already clearing his throat. Raymond Cole, at 78, was still a booming man, though years of bourbon had roughened the edges of his voice. His suit pulled tight across his shoulders, and the red in his cheeks came not only from drink, but from the thrill of an audience. Vivian stood beside him, hair-lacquered lips painted a sharp maroon, the picture of a second wife who had mastered her stage. At her side glowed Chloe, 26, in a shimmer of sequins that caught every light in the room. Heads turned toward her as if she were royalty. My father raised his paper cup, beer sloshing. To Chloe he announced, voice rolling like thunder through a tin roof: "The daughter who makes me proud, the one who carries this family forward." Applause scattered around the tables, dutiful, uncertain. Chloe lifted her chin, the corners of her mouth curved like a practiced actress. Then he twisted the knife. His eyes raked across the crowd until they found me near the back. He smiled, a dry smile, a slash across his face. "And as for the other one, she's nothing but baggage." The words fell heavy. Forks scraped to a stop. Even the DJ, startled, let the song run out mid-verse, leaving a vacuum of silence more suffocating than the smoke. For a second the room seemed to tilt. I felt the heat rush to my ears, the air thin, as though shame itself had stolen the oxygen. Chloe laughed softly, the sound bright and cruel, like a crown settling on her head. Ellie's hand sought mine again beneath the table. Her whisper threaded through the hush: "Fight clean, child." I placed my cup down with deliberate care, aligning it perfectly with the crease in the paper napkin. My instinct was to rise, to remind them who I was, what I carried on my collar, the weight of 2 stars that had taken decades to earn. But medals mean little to those who have already decided you are less than family. So I chose a different weapon: silence. I kept my gaze steady, breathing slow, spine unbending. Let them look. Let them mistake restraint for defeat. I thought, if they want silence, I'll give them silence. Until the silence speaks louder than their pride. The morning after, I didn't hear cicadas, I heard headlines: "General Cole Block's stepsister's career." The paper lay on my desk before the coffee cooled, its ink sharp against the fluorescent glare of my office at Quantico. The typeface screamed more than the cicadas ever could, each word a verdict disguised as journalism. I traced the headline with a fingertip, the way recruits once traced grooves in the rifle stock at Paris Island, when silence was the only defense. Boot camp had taught me to stand still when fire pressed too close. Sometimes you outlasted it by refusing to flinch. But Quantico was not Paris Island, and rumors travel faster than bullets. By noon, I heard them ricocheting through corridors carried in half-whispers and unfinished sentences. Officers glanced my way, looked back at folders, then lowered their voices. A smear feels like smoke. You can't grab it, but it coats everything you touch. At a diner off Route 1, the newspaper was spread wide across a counter already sticky with syrup. Chloe's photo filled half the front page, her sequined gown from the gala glinting as though she had been crowned by destiny. The caption beneath it hinted at sabotage. My name pressed against hers in black and white insinuation. General Cole accused of blocking stepsister's future. Nobody mentioned that I had recused myself from her evaluations months before. Integrity doesn't make headlines. Vivian, I learned, had been the whisper behind the press. She told church friends, neighbors, even the florist, that Chloe was the victim of my envy. She layered it with the practiced pity of a woman who plays aggrieved without ever raising her voice. By the time it reached the journalists, it was dressed as truth. My father's silence was confirmation enough. He let the rumors stand like scaffolding he would never dismantle. Chloe herself beamed at first. She posed in borrowed light, shaking hands, accepting compliments from those who thought her rise inevitable. But smiles shift when admiration curdles. By the end of the week, I saw her posture stiffen as peers withdrew their greetings, clipped their praise cautious. Pride has a sharp edge. She had walked it too eagerly. I returned to my office one humid afternoon, blinds, half-drawn files stacked like barricades. I drafted a memo with steady hands, the air conditioner's hum competing with the drum of my pulse. With one signature, I removed myself from every possible decision concerning Chloe. I attached her file to the order and sent it to the independent review panel. The act was simple, procedural, almost cold, but it burned like truth. Before leaving, I opened my email to Martin Keating, my legal advisor. I typed carefully, "Be present at Veterans Day. Transparency must be seen." His reply came within minutes, brief and steady. "Understood." Later, in the quiet of my office, I faced the mirror. Fluorescent light made every line of fatigue sharp, every doubt more visible. I leaned closer, words barely above a breath. "If silence costs me, let the record repay." The band was mid-two-step when my heels touched the linoleum. By the second step, the room remembered what silence can do. Neon bled across the Civic Center, condensation on cups, chatter thinning into pause. I did not rush. Dress blues dictate their own rhythm, heel-toe breath. Mother's maxim, "Walked with me, fight clean." And somewhere beneath the brass and starch lingered my email to Keating, proof that process, not noise, would frame this night. Crossing the threshold, I felt eyes falter. A fork stalled in midair. The DJ lost his grin. I sought no face, needed no permission. The uniform did the speaking, ribbons like a ledger, 2 stars sharp as verdicts. At the back, Ellie folded her hands, steady as ever. Raymond, flushed with applause he thought he owned, leaned into a new toast. He loved microphones the way some men love mirrors. "Friends," he boomed, "let's raise it again for Chloe, the pride of this family, the one making waves at headquarters." Cheers answered. Vivian, lacquered and precise, lifted her glass without spilling a drop. She turned Chloe by the shoulders so everyone could see her face. "Tell them Vivian coaxed about your work at HQ." Chloe sparkled under the lights, confident mouth, careful posture. She found the microphone, but before her words arrived, her eyes did. They climbed the front of my jacket, service stripes, rows of ribbon, the eagle, globe, and anchor, and then reached my collar. 2 stars are not subtle." Her voice stumbled. Air thinned. She tried again, but the syllables tripped on rank and fell at my feet. "I did not rescue her. I did not shame her. I stood where the light could find the truth by itself." The microphone squealed. Chloe's grip tightened. Then, as if the sentence fell out faster than thought, she blurted, "She is my general. The words cracked like a flag snapping. Heads turned, phones lowered. Raymond's laugh sputtered into nothing. Vivian's smile froze into porcelain. I stepped forward only far enough to reach the stand. I didn't take the podium. I didn't need elevation. I let the hush finish forming and borrowed the microphone for breath and one sentence. Standards are not inherited. They are earned. I set the mic back where it belonged. No accusations, no names, just the rule that had carried me farther than bitterness ever could. The room recalibrated. Chloe's eyes brimmed not with drama but realization. Vivian pressed her daughter's arm, pretending control. Raymond looked anywhere but at me. Mirrors never please when they reflect truth. I breathed as the corb taught steady discipline. Mother's words again, fight clean. And I remembered the memo already signed, the records already set in motion. Justice moved quietly, but it moved. From the back, a veteran rose as much as old wounds allowed. 2 fingers touched his brow in a muted salute. Another followed. The DJ let the playlist die. The air carried its own music. Chloe Vivian whispered into the microphone she thought was off. Say something. But Chloe had already said the only true sentence the room needed. Her face, so certain of stage lights a month ago now, wore the look of someone who has seen a compass reorient north, flipping to where she didn't expect it. I did not stand at center stage, nor in shadow. The dress blues had their own gravity. The crowd orbited around the truth they had ignored. This was no triumph. It was correction gears clicking back into place. Ellie pressed a fist to her chest. Raymond searched for a joke and found none. His empty glass clattered harder than he intended. I lifted a water glass. To clean fights and clean records. The donors exchange looks. Someone lowers a camera. Which record? And if you want to see how silence turns into justice, stay with me for the next part. Sometimes the cleanest fight begins when the crowd leans closer. Rumors wilt when paper speaks. I signed nothing so the paper could speak louder. Rain tapped steady against the Quantico windows, a metronome for the fluorescent hum. I sat apart from the panel hands, quiet, no folders before me. Keating opened a binder and slid a page forward. Recusal memorandum, he said. My name topped the document, but no signature lay beneath, only the date, delegation, and authority passed weeks earlier. The chair confirmed I had stepped aside long before review began. Pens clicked. The stenographer typed. I remained a spectator. That was the point. Chloe sat 3 chairs down, blazer 2 large shoulders taut. Vivian waited behind her, polished and restless bracelets tapping. If she was a storm, she preferred to rumble at the edges. The panel moved through facts with clinical tone, inflated travel receipts, unattributed text citations exact. No adjectives, no malice, just pages. Sanctions, the chair read restitution, a formal reprimand, and mandatory mentoring. Chloe inhaled once, exhaled slow. Not defiance, not collapse, acceptance. Vivian's jaw tightened. The record had spoken and rumor thinned. Later in the county's modest press room, cheap backdrop microphones with frayed foam reporters waited. Keating stood at the lectern, tie, neat cadence, steady. General Cole removed herself from any decision-making. The process did the rest. A reporter asked, was she ever accused internally of blocking Ms. Grant? No, Keating replied. The record shows recusal and independent review. Another pressed. Sources suggest whispers in church groups framed this as revenge. Vivian shifted. Her bracelet clinked. Keating did not blink. Leaks traced back to private social circles unaffiliated with this base. Those circles included acquaintances of Mrs. Vivian Cole. Murmurs stirred. Pencils scratched harder. Vivian offered a thin smile. We were simply proud of Chloe. Pride talks. Pride, Keating said, does not alter procedure. I left the room before the questions thinned. The hallway smelled of wet coats. Rain blurred the lot into a silver mirror. Footsteps quickened, then slowed beside me. I didn't realize. Ma'am. Chloe's voice carried the weight of her file, not her stepmother's praise. Then realized this truth outranks pride. Her nod was small, but sure. A salute followed, awkward, but real. For the first time, it was not borrowed pride, but her own gesture. I answered with a quiet dip of my head. Behind her, the press door sighed shut. Vivian would be rewriting her story inside. Raymond hadn't appeared at all, his absence louder than words. Keating joined me by the window. You good? I'm not on the signature line. He nodded. Veterans Day is next month. I remember. We watched the rain flare under the lamps, each drop a fleeting spark. The smear that had fogged the summer washed out of the air. The record would remain long after microphones cooled. Back at my office, I switched on the desk lamp. Files waited patient as always. My cover rested neatly in the corner. The inbox glowed with new mail, county seal subject clear as a folded flag. County email arrives. Veterans Day ceremony invites me as guest of honor. The subject line reads, "Please join us, let the community see what clean looks like." Veterans Day flags cracked in the wind, and I knew this stage would not smell of barbecue or beer. It would smell of reckoning. Morning sun skimmed the parade field and flashed on the brass. Rows of chairs, a podium, banks of flags. The Marine band tuned, then fell quiet. The announcer read the names of the fallen in a steady register that made the ground feel steadier still. Between each name, the wind moved through the cloth, a breath the crowd took together. The fight you pick, fight clean. My mother's refrain stitched itself through the seam of my collar as I sat among the guests. Dress blues, fitted and calm. I pressed my palms together, let my pulse choose a measured cadence, and kept my eyes level with the horizon where the trees held. July's insult scorched. August's rumor smoked. October cleared the air. November, I decided, would make the air exact. Across the aisle, Vivian's polish showed hairline cracks. She searched for a friendly nod and found none. Chloe sat 2 chairs away, chin tucked but unafraid to meet my eyes. Her gaze held not defiance, not apology, the steadiness of someone finally listening. Ellie pinched a handkerchief and gave me the smallest nod, a lantern at low flame. Keating stepped to the lectern without adjusting it. His tie lay flat, his pages squared. General Cole recused herself months ago. Due process spoke. Justice is stronger when clean. The sentence carried like iron struck once, resonance sufficient. A murmur moved across the rows, agreement without theater. From the staging tent, my father emerged, smaller than memory allowed. A hand touched his sleeve and pointed him to the microphone. He cleared his throat, waiting for laughter or music to pull him forward. None arrived. Flags cracked once, then again. Veterans in the front row straightened by degrees, vertebrae clicking like ratchets. Expectation set the shape of the silence. He gripped the podium as if it might drift, and said, voice roughened by the truth it had avoided, "My daughter, Major General Meredith Cole." The words arrived chipped at the edges, but they landed. Chairs rasped, people rose, hands came to brows in salutes that cut the air clean. Vivian's purse straps creaked. Ellie breathed. About time, the syllables small as a secret. Chloe dropped her eyes and whispered, "She earned it." I stood and walked to the podium without hurry. The sun pressed at the brim of my cover and the wind tested my jacket, then left it be. Faces filled the horizon, neighbors, veterans, reporters. The same community that had watched me, reduced, now watched the correction right itself. I did not think of plastic tablecloths. I thought of paper recusal and findings and the way signatures make their own weather. Keating returned to his place. My father had already taken a half step from the mic, diminished by his own correction. I set my hand on the lectern and let the crowd settle. Flags spoke behind me. The band waited. I didn't raise my voice. I raised the standard. And the room adjusted. My father's correction wasn't a gift. It was a verdict forced by truth. I'd like to hear from you. What lesson would you take from my story? Comment below. If you ever feel dismissed, do not waste energy on rage. Instead, prepare your proof, live your values, and wait for the moment when even silence bends in your favor.